they were in a different land. Well, frankly, neither did Columbus. He thought he was in India. That's why he called them Indians. And that's why, we've called them for Indians for centuries. We called them Indians for centuries, but now they prefer to be called Native American. I think that's changing. I must not have gotten the memo, because I think we're now, because I am part Cherokee and Osage, which would make me part Native American. But I think now the term, it's kind of like, going from Negro to color to black to African American. I think the Native Americans are no longer called Native Americans. I think the left has come up with a new term or new word, indigenous people. Now, frankly, the connotation I get with the word indigenous people is like some, bush people in Africa or something. The pygmy tribes, and those are indigenous people. Really backwards, very primitive. Native Americans were not primitive at all. In fact, Native Americans had some of the most advanced civilization that this ancient civilizations that this planet had. So they weren't, deep in the African jungle, small tribe bush type of people, that ran around with spears. No, these were indigenous people. They were for their time period, for what they needed, they were well educated, they were trained, and they weren't savages at all. After my meeting with the people the good people in Perry County, I went and visited my mother. I call her my mommy. And, she likes to watch a lot of the old Westerns and stuff like that. We're talking, 40s, 50s Westerns. And it was, I was sitting there watching some of it. It was amazing to me that in all of these Westerns, you have the cavalry and cowboys and Indians and that kind of thing. They always referred to Native Americans as being savages. Now, the interesting thing about that is that they were probably more civilized than the people who were conquering the land. Look, Native Americans didn't suffer many of the debilitating diseases from filth that the European man did. So again, who were the dirty savages? I mean, there were times, and these are also recorded historical facts, by the way. There were times where many Indian chiefs and peoples across the United States, they would talk about running into and having to deal with so-called Europeans. And they always complained about the stench of the European. Native Americans didn't stink. They regularly bathed themselves. They often complained and talked about the stench of the white man back then. No, I'm not being disparaging. I'm just telling you historical fact. The whole notion that indigenous people were here first, well, obviously precludes the fact that Columbus discovered. No, okay, but maybe they didn't know that they were here. All right. Well, we also have historical fact that there were some other Europeans that knew where they were and were here first, long before Columbus. As a matter of fact, they have found evidence that these northern Europeans, we call them Vikings and Nordics, went so far west as Minnesota and North Dakota. They knew where they were, so obviously they discovered the New World first. And of course, there have been people that have done all kinds of other experiments and expeditions and have proven that Polynesian people could have gotten to South America by their boats. Egyptians could have been to Central America, could have made it to Central America via their boats, which might, as they say, would explain the mathematical similarities between South and Central American pyramids and the Egyptian pyramids. Well, I know there are other people who think, well, it's aliens, Rod, aliens. But there's also biblical reference for that, and the Tower of Babel and people being spread across the globe. But this whole notion that Columbus discovered America is wrong. However, this isn't what the left is fighting about. The left is not fighting about trying to accurately portray and teach history. No. That's not what they're doing. What the left is doing is attacking the very notion of the establishment of the United States and the West. That, we're supposed to feel bad. We today are supposed to feel bad about what happened 400 years ago, and 300 years ago, and 200 years ago. And somehow today, it's our fault what happened, 2, 3, 4, 500 years ago. It's modern man's fault today, that what happened back then. We weren't even, hell, in many cases, even our great-grandparents weren't even thought of yet. But we're supposed to be responsible for everything that happened even before our great-grandparents were born. I don't understand how the left comes to that conclusion. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So we're supposed to feel bad and somehow make reparations. No, well, the only way that we can actually make reparations is if we give the Indians, Native Americans, indigenous people back the land. Well, that's not possible. As a matter of fact, whenever Native Americans do hold the government accountable for their treaties, and I'll give you an example. Upstate New York, Iroquois Nation. When the tribes of the Iroquois Nation in central New York, after they got some money because of the casino there called Turning Stone, which is now a huge operation, they started going through the legal motions of taking their land back on their reservation. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, there were people, many of them liberal, by the way, voting for Democrats and liberal state and national representatives for their area. Well, they found themselves caught in the crossfire. The Native Americans wanted the land that was taken from them, that was promised to them, and that somehow these people were able to, without their permission, buy the property and live on Native American, without just compensation to the Native Americans and to the tribe. They're on reservation land. And so then when they went to court and won to get back what was rightfully theirs, you should have heard all these wonderful liberals complaining and calling them all kinds of names and trying to do all kinds of things. But now they're telling us that, hey, white man stole everything. Well, they were trying to get back what those liberals stole from them, and they were met with vile and vast confrontation. Now, the natives eventually won, and those people were allowed to stay, those who wanted to. But now they were under a land lease. And again, they were not happy about that. Well, if you're talking about giving something back that belongs to somebody else, but then again you fight it when it happens to you, well, that's typical hypocrisy. But what the left does for this anti-Columbus Day, and you know what, this whole notion that Columbus was not a hero, he was a tragic happenstance upon this wonderful land, is not something that is really seen or believed by the vast majority of Native Americans today. No, they don't. They don't consider Columbus to be a hero or a fantastic journeyer, as they call him, or explorer, as we would call him. That's not what they see. But they don't see an invader in Columbus either, because that's how the left portrays Columbus was an invader. And then he was followed by the Mayflower people. They were invaders, and all those Quakers were invaders. And that is not, because that's not how many natives view Europeans. Because look, a lot of Native Americans have had bad luck with our government, and that's also historically accurate, unfortunately. But most Native Americans today are American. Or if they're in Canada, they're Canadian. They don't consider themselves to be separate. Although they do like to be able to hold on to their own traditions and their own language. And that's why they're very protective of their reservations. And let's face it, our government constantly tries to attack the reservation system by trying to take their land or sell it without their permission, all that kind of stuff. But hey, the Obama administration is just doing that this past year, doing something out west, selling off Native American land. And we're supposed to sit back and follow this whole notion that Columbus was evil. Columbus was mean and dark and cruel, and that he shouldn't be celebrated. I mean, that's I don't. That's some of the most ridiculous liberal drivel I've heard yet so far. That's what it is. It's just drivel. I mean, it's one of those things. I don't know. Columbus is he's not a hero. He's an invader. Here. Let me wipe that spittle off the side of your chin. Now go back and sit in the corner, Mr. Liberal. What I would like to see in this country, in our educational system, and in the general public, what I would like to see is fairly simple and easy. It isn't, well, I guess maybe to the left it would be radical, but it's not really a radical thought as far as education is concerned. It's not really a radical thought as far as society should be concerned. The thought is, instead of teaching ideology, which oftentimes is wrong, why not just embrace and teach the truth? Teach the historical facts. Just teach the damn truth. If it's bad history that we're teaching, then that's an educational teaching moment. So we do not recreate or revisit that type of thing in the future. But to try to rewrite history, well, that's just going to ensure that the actual facts are hidden and that people are going to be doomed to repeat that awful history. Teach the facts. Doesn't matter how unpleasant those facts are. I agree. Some historical facts about this country are very unpleasant for us. But they need to be taught. And it needs to be done without an ideology or an ideological bent. There's no need for it. Just tell the truth. Teach the truth. I mean, that's why I'm here. I'm just here to tell and teach the truth. That's why you're ecclesiastites, because you want to know the truth. And unfortunately, by me speaking the truth, I've been labeled an outsider, an Uncle Tom, a sellout, a Republican driphead, and all kinds of names. And all I'm doing is telling. And by me telling the truth and being factual and logical is nothing more than being a conservative, then I guess I'm guilty, because that's all that really counts. Teach the truth, or else we're going to repeat